I am very disappointed with the way army has behaved throughout this period. I had great hope in Nepalese army. They have a fantastic global reputation as brave and as intelligent Nepalese soldiers. But this situation, I must say, they have not managed it well. Army has a responsibility to protect this nation, and instead of going and protecting Singhadarbar, instead of protecting the Supreme Court and other buildings, they let it burn. Nation was in crisis. They could have easily taken over the running of the country for a limited period of time in order to set the situation normal, and then they could have given it to the elected representative. That makes simple, it's a simple formula. Now they didn't do that. The Chinese and the Indians and the Americans, they're all playing here. So you think with all these players we are going to have peace in this country?
Foreign Affairs expert Bhairaja Pandey, sir. Welcome to the Gorkha Spirit.
Thank you very much.
How do you see the role of Nepalese army in Genz protest? Are you satisfied?
I am very disappointed with the way army has behaved throughout this period. I had great hope in Nepalese army. They have a fantastic global reputation as brave and as intelligent Nepalese soldiers. But this situation, I must say, they have not managed it well. Nepalese army, this situation was handed over to the Nepalese army in a silver platter. They didn't have to fight for power. Power landed on their lap. It landed. They could have used that power. Instead, they handed the power back to a failed system and failed government instead of using that power. They needed to say that, sorry, the country is in crisis, we are taking over the country temporarily, we will have a prime minister. They could have chosen Sushila Karki and whomever they wanted. This team will draft an interim constitution and to run for a period. And at the end of this period, we will hand over power to the newly elected government, and that would work. But instead of doing the very simple task, the army has got itself caught in an impossible situation. Number one. Number two, why did army delay protecting national heritage sites? Why did they delay? Army has a responsibility to protect this nation, and instead of going and protecting Singhadarbar, instead of protecting the Supreme Court and other buildings, they let it burn. And now the explanation army gives is that they didn't want to confront people, because if they confronted people and if there were deaths, then army would be held as accountable as the police, and army would lose its special place in hearts of Nepalese people. That is a bit of an escapist attitude, because many Nepalese people there, those who are doing arson and looting and burning, very sight of the army would make them stop doing that. Army has to show force. The army doesn't have to use force. So show of force is enough, and army should have done that. They should not have allowed Singhadarbar to be burned and these buildings to be burned, but they did. So it has been a failure on two fronts. On the political front, the army failed because it left the constitution be as it is. That was a failure. on the ground it failed to provide the security country needed, and it seems that they are using all kinds of excuses. We did not get clearance from the Prime Minister, we did not get this. Can't they see a building burning? Do they need to wait for all the clearances before they see the whole country go into flames? So it has been a very disappointing result from a very brave and very renowned institution in our country.
So, what's your expectations from the Nepalese army in that situation?
Nepalese army, two things. Nepalese army should have taken the power first in the first instance. They should have they say that could have seen that the country is passing through a crisis. They could have taken over the power and appointed Ms. Sushila Karki or whomever and their team as interim government to take the country to the next election. That they didn't do. They could have on their own. Any responsible soldier knows that the country cannot be put on fire. Even a civilian knows this. An army, when it is next door, they know it, and they should have stopped. They didn't do that. So on both accounts, army will have to be answerable to Nepalese people in due course.
As a journalist or some of analysts like you, just they raise the questions towards the Nepalese army, but Nepalese people, they don't raise the questions over Nepalese army. So what's the reason? What might be the?
Because Nepalese people seem to have very low expectation of the army. They think that, in fact, they are giving them credit for putting in a system that is unworkable. They even say the Nepalese army saved the country. That is utter rubbish. Now the country has gone into a very difficult phase simply because of the lack of judgment of the Nepalese army. So I hope, and people seem to have no expectation. They think that Nepalese army is only there to follow orders, and so if somebody doesn't give them orders, then it's the fault of someone else. Nepalese army has no brains of its own. Nepalese army can't see buildings burning, national property going in flames, and so I think it's the problem of perception of Nepalese army among the people. People think that these are bunch of people who do nothing, who just patrol the streets and who live. So very little or no expectation from the army.
But still, the Nepalese people praise the army because they thought that they saved the nation. So do you think, you don't think so, yes?
No, if they would have saved the nation if they had taken over the power. If they had taken over, nation was in crisis. They could have easily taken over the running of the country for a limited period of time in order to set the situation normal, and then they could have given it to the elected representative. That makes simple, it's a simple formula. Now they didn't do that.
So Nepalese army just like handle the situation. Now it's a peace here, so you don't believe it?
I don't think it is a peace. It is not going to be peace for very long. We are going to have conflict very soon in this country.
So why do you think so?
Because now all the forces are loose. All the forces, the UML, the Congress, all the corrupt people, and then Genz, and then all the people who got involved in burning the place. All the forces, different forces that came together, all the unhappy forces that came together. Then there are foreign forces that are at play here. There are the Chinese and the Indians and the Americans. They're all playing here. So you think with all these players we are going to have peace in this country?
So our just like neighbors, foreign power centers, their roles we will discuss in the next episode. So what's your suggestions to the Nepalese armies? How should they just like deal with in such situation?
Nepalese army has very simple task to do. I have mentioned it to a lot of my colleagues who are ex-Nepalese army. Nepalese army simply has to take over the running of the government for a transition period of few months or a few years to stabilize the country. The country is unstable, and in this the country could disintegrate. So you need a strong central leadership to keep this country together. So army has to provide it and then get a strong leader elected and hand over the country to him, to a civilian leader, hand over the country to him or her, and for that they can keep the current Sushila Karki government, they can keep them. But it has to be reporting to the army, not to the defunct president, which is happening now.
Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
for joining with us.
Thank you very much.